Michael Carnahan, please begin.
Shenanigans Podcast.
Good afternoon, good evening, good whatever, wherever you're watching this from on Facebook or YouTube. This is Money Mike Carnahan. Of course, you notice we have rebranded this podcast to the Shenanigans Podcast. A little bit of a brainchild of Mr. Sean Castleberry and Duck out there in California. I'm pretty excited about the changes. Feel free to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell on YouTube. And, of course, like and subscribe our Facebook page as well if you enjoy our content. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about September 11th conspiracy theories. Can't wait to get into some of these. You know, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm kind of a guy that believes a lot of the stuff that the government tells me as far as what 9/11 was. I think the actual story is horrifying enough. I don't really see the need for conspiracy theories. But we're going to go ahead and bring on the co-hosts, including Mr. Duck. Duck, how you doing this week?
What's up?
Hey. It's going good, brother. It's going good. I'm glad to be back on here. And, of course, you see our new logo behind us. I'm super excited and want to give you a shout-out both for the new logo and the new intro. Both amazing quality work, Doug.
Thank you.
Well, Doug, I know that in preparation for this podcast, you watched Loose Change. Has it kind of changed your idea of what happened September 11th, 2001?
Considerably. It was compelling. Like I said, I'm a nerd. Blurred, a black nerd. And I really am the show me the money kind of guy. You got to show me the facts. And the video did, the whole documentary did just that. It had actual scientists, credible scientists. I actually looked them up. Googled them all. And these guys are accredited scientists that have proof, concrete proof, like they were able to get the debris from some of the crash sites, you know, and they found explosive elements in it, you know, like, you know, contaminants that suggest that there was explosive used. So it's the scientific research that they actually put into the documentary. So it's not like one of those leaving Netherland Michael Jackson kind of things where it's like this word of mouth and it's all hearsay. This was actually done with a lot of witnesses and actually concrete proof to sway me from being just another guy like, okay, I'm not really buying into all the conspiracy theories most of the times, but that's what swayed me.
And of course, absolutely. And of course, we do have a third member of our group here that is going to be joining us. And of course, this song takes on a little bit deeper of a meaning, and we'll talk about that after it.
Sounds good.
Okay, that's enough of that. None of that for you, Sean. Guys, I said this. I said this a second ago, but this kind of takes on a little bit of a more of a meaning today. I didn't realize this till I was checking Facebook. Today's the anniversary of Tupac being shot and killed.
Right.
And of course,
I can't really celebrate it, but
well, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
but yeah.
Absolutely. And of course, today's also the return of NFL football. And as you see on my screen back here, 17 to 27 right now, the Washington football team, as they're now known, are beating the Philadelphia Eagles.
Washington football team.
What, Washington football team? That's the name of it?
They don't even have a name now. I think they said that they were going to.
Yeah.
I think they said that they were going to go through this year and then readdress the mascot situation next year. I mean, there's all sorts of things you can do with that. I mean, come on now, Washington Generals. Come on now. Anybody can come up with this stuff.
There could have been. I mean, we came up with shenanigans in a matter of 6 hours.
Yeah.
With everything that we did. So it just three guys
and they come up
around.
with football team.
No, we didn't just come up with it. We came up with it, built the logo, built the intro.
Right.
6 hours.
The YouTube.
And what most people don't know is like the show has gone through many incarnations over the last year, and this is hopefully the final incarnation. We went by 24/7 for a couple episodes, and it just didn't seem like it worked because we're not on 24/7. And maybe we thought it was a little misleading. So, I mean, we're just three guys that are just talking about things we're interested in, having a lot of fun. So it's shenanigans. And I think that's what we need to do. Yeah.
Absolutely, and there's going to be plenty of shenanigans on here with you on here, Sean. I can guarantee that.
Right.
This name is definitely not a misnomer. But, I messaged you guys Friday, and I said I thought this would be a good topic for us, just for the simple fact being, 19 years since what happened that day. And, obviously everybody does this, but we can go around the table here. I remember where I was when I first heard about it. I was in the library at Sylvan Hills Middle School here in Sherwood, Arkansas. I remember a woman coming in and saying, "Oh my God, a plane has struck the tower." And I legitimately, this is me being 11, I didn't even know what the Twin Towers were. So I thought automatically they meant the control tower at the Little Rock Airport, as it was. I don't even remember what it was known as before Bill and Hillary Clinton, but the airport here in Little Rock, I thought that's what they meant. And then, of course, throughout the day, watching it on the screen during school and stuff. On the telly, actually watching CNN, before it got that bad reputation. But, Duck, where were you when you first heard about the tragic events of September 11th? Duck, where were you when you first heard about the tragic events on 9/11?
Oh.
Duck, can you hear me?
Stop. Hammer time.
Can y'all hear me?
I can.
You were in the Bay Area? When 9/11 happened, where were you at?
Who's you? Sean or Mike?
Oh, Duck, you.
Oh,
Duck.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
My
sorry.
bad. Sorry. I've been in Cali for most of my life. So when it hit, I was coincidentally at home, recovering from a long shift at work. And my ex-wife, called me on my cell, and she actually sent. I had a little flip phone back then, so I opened up my flip phone and there's pictures of the Twin Towers, and I wasn't 12 at the time or 14, or I was young, but I still didn't know what the hell Twin Towers were. So I'm like, what is this? What And she showed me, and I remember just taking it all in. It was fantasy, but surreal is the word I'm looking for. Surreal.
And we talk about being nerds on this show, and I'm kind of a nerd in that, like, on 9/11, I'll go back and rewatch the news coverage of what happened as it happened on 9/11. And, you know, I watched it, and the thing that always sticks out to me every year is before the second plane hit, they were like, could this be an accident? Is there any way? And I'm just like, now knowing what I know, I'm like, how the fuck did you even think this was an accident?
I did.
So, like, I was in the Bay Area in California at the time, in Fremont, and I'll never forget it because I was working at Hollywood Video, and I had scheduled myself for that evening. And I woke up next to my son. He was like 6 months old, and I'm feeding him a bottle. And, you know, I used to watch the Today Show in the morning. So that's the first thing I did. Once I got the bottle in Matthew's little mouth, I sat there and I hit the remote, and I was like, hell, somebody hit the Twin Towers with a plane. So now I'm watching it. And it's kind of like what you said, you know, looking back, how did people not realize what it was? But it was only one plane at the time. So we thought it was this very tragic accident that had actually happened. We didn't realize we had no clue of what this was. And right in the middle of that, it was only a few minutes after that when the second plane hit live on TV, and it was like, whoa.
Holy, yeah, literally, like, I got to give it up to the broadcasters because it literally would have been a holy shit moment for me.
Yes. And you know, that's like when I got on the phone and started calling people, it's like, hey, something's going down in New York, get home. You know, whatever you got to do, just get home. You know, just telling everybody.
You both were in California at the time. Were you both worried? Obviously, in Arkansas, people stupidly were like, "Are we next?" But legitimately, you guys had high value targets. Were you guys legitimately like, "Oh shit, will this come here?"
Yeah, I mean, businesses shut down for a few days. Everything kind of stopped in the Bay Area. You know, there was no construction. People were just out and about. You know, very little business. Except for like essential stuff, kind of like what's happening now,
right?
But it was just like Donald said. He used the word surreal a while ago. It definitely was surreal because, you know, you just kind of walked around expecting something to go wrong any day after that.
So I mean, I obviously wasn't in the military at the time, but I've always had this mindset. I mean, I'll ask you first, Sean, and then we'll go to you, Doug. Was your first instinct, once you knew what it was, your first instinct, let's go get these fuckers and kill them? Because that was my first instinct, was to, you know, okay, when are we fucking these people up?
Honestly, I got caught up in the hype, and I was exactly that. I was like, I was too old to do it, but I wouldn't have been opposed to joining the Marines or something. I was that level of pissed off. So yeah, I had to calm down, and you know.
I remember saying word for word that I wish we could just turn the Middle East into glass over this.
Yeah.
You know, just
damn.
I was pissed, and you know, I was more conservative at the time, and yeah, man, I wanted us to unleash some nuclear holocaust on the Middle East and just take care of it forever. I was so angry at the situation, and I'm glad we didn't now. But you know, I mean, that's just me. Yeah, it is.
It's the pictures. You know what? When I was on Sean's level, what picture did that for me was seeing a couple holding hands jumping out of the building, ending it together. Yeah. There was people actually committing suicide to get out of the building, and because you see them like in a sitting position, free falling, holding hands. That pissed me off. That made me. That's what.
And I mean, you look at these things, and Sean, you've told me before, you know, on our other show, the American Idiot Show, you've been like, Michael, 3,000 people died that day. How many people have we killed over there? And there's still part of me that is on that September 11th mentality that's like, you know what? I hate that we had to kill so many innocent civilians, but that motherfucker needed to pay. And I do hate that I feel that way, but at the same time, I am completely happy that we ridded this planet of that heinous motherfucker. Of course, there's some conspiracy theories surrounding that as well, but...
Right.
I don't think we're going to get into that, but let's go ahead and start talking about the official story. So the official story, obviously, 2 commercial aircrafts strike the Twin Towers, another one strikes the Pentagon, and one goes down in Shanksville, PA. a lot of controversy surrounding what happened with United Flight 93 that went down in Shanksville, and we'll talk about that. But I kind of, when we talk about the official story here, I want to kind of, go into something that I was watching that day, the other day on the History Channel, which was about the movements of the president that day. And the reason why I think this is important is because of the things they went through. So they talked about, the first thing was he was informed of the first plane hitting before he went into the elementary school. He was told, hey, there's a plane that hit the tower. We don't know what it is, but, no big deal. He was informed of the second plane. As he was reading to the elementary school. And, of course, it's the famous photo of Andy Card coming in, leaning over him and saying, sir, a second plane has just struck the tower. And a lot of people criticize Bush for his response in that moment. And I say this, though, to those people. You're in a classroom full of little kids who probably can't grasp what's going on. How do you expect the president to act in that case? I don't believe he shouldn't have acted. I believe that he did the right thing.
I think he should have acted presidential. I think a good president would know how to exit a kindergarten without causing panic. I think he should have been presidential, and he wasn't.
I mean, I gotta honestly side with Michael on this one, only for the fact that this should never happen on American soil, on a continental United States soil, on such a level before, since the American British War of 1812, and not so many casualties at one time. And so I'm sure when they came in and they told him, they're like, "Hey, sir, Mr. President, we've had an incident where a plane has hit the Twin Towers. We think it might be a terrorist incident. We're going to get you out of here as soon as we're done with this."
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's sitting there because the look on his face is...
You could tell the look on his face, the gears are turning.
The gears are turning, and he's just like, oh, shit. Oh, wow. Okay. And then he waits. He waits patiently for them to come get him and get him out of there. And a lot of people gave him shit over that. But, I mean, I'm not the president, and no other president before had to deal with anything quite like that. How is somebody supposed to react?
Can't you say that? I mean, how is somebody supposed to act as presidential? You might as well say the same thing about Trump. We haven't had this kind of virus before. Why didn't Trump act sooner? Well, Trump...
my thing is this, though. And, there has been that argument. Why hasn't Trump acted differently with, and it could possibly incite a panic. My thing is this, though, with the kindergartners there and the teachers there, you don't want, and you have CNN and the eyes of the world on you. You know this is being broadcast because you're the fucking president of the United States. You don't want all of a sudden... chaos to erupt in that classroom, because that's not going to look very presidential. You don't want to be like, you don't want President Bush to stand up and say, hey guys, I got to go. There's been a terrorist attack in New York City, because there's going to be a lot more conversations. And I remember in the interview, he said he was looking at the reporters, and he said it was literally like a wave. Their phones would go off and you could see them getting the news. A lot of me today is going to go along the lines of, unless I've sat in that seat, I can't criticize the way President Bush reacted.
You can't
because I can't legitimately know how I would react in that situation.
A president is supposed to be, if you're running for president, you're supposed to be preparing yourself. There are presidents that know how to exit a kindergarten without causing panic. What? Of course, that's what. If you're basically saying, well, how is a cop supposed to? Well, if you're a cop, then don't be a cop if you can't handle certain situations. If you're a president, the ruler of the free freaking world, then you maybe shouldn't be a president if you're not prepared to handle certain things that never happened before.
Very true. Very true.
No, you're the president. You're expected to be able to handle something this high powered. This is the job you took. So that's why. If it was just Mike, I'm like, yeah, Mike, I'd probably be teasing you. Like, yeah, you got a choke there, buddy. But this is the freaking president of the freaking world. I mean, if you buy into the,
right,
the free world thing, but that's why I blame him. I'm like, yeah, dude, you got the job. You're the one. We voted for your ass. So yeah, I expect you to be to be able to handle the situation without causing panic.
I think, to be honest, I mean, if President Obama had been sitting in that chair, in that school, in that same situation, he would have done the same thing.
I would like to say he would.
No way.
I think he would.
Well,
How would you have preferred him have gotten out? I guess I should say.
I'm only using differences. I'm using actual stuff that he actually did. Just like Obama prepared. He was prepared. Just like with the comparing Trump to Obama with the virus things. But the difference
is that a fair comparison? Because Obama had 8 years of knowledge.
He had programs in place to deal with something like this. So that was his big thing. He was prepared a lot. So I think he wouldn't have acted the same way because he liked to prepare. Or maybe his administration, whatever it was, had him prepared like this. Because he actually prepared in most situations.
But, this is kind of the comparison between Trump and that's like saying Michael Jordan and LeBron James. I don't really compare the two just for the simple fact being in this case, Obama had 7.5 years since 9/11 or 7 years since 9/11 when he took office. So he knew that this was a potential. George W. Bush, nobody had attacked America on their own soil since Pearl Harbor, I believe, Sean. Correct? Mainly in the U.S.
Yeah.
Since Pearl Harbor. It was almost, a lot of people said it's like science fiction. What was going on that day?
Yeah, how surreal that it was,
But that's not what I heard. He had people. There's people. They released information that they were trying to warn the man. But come on, you guys haven't heard about that? Yeah,
we're going to get into that too.
But again, he's sitting there at a scheduled appointment with children. You know what I'm saying? In a classroom environment, here they all are. Their parents are there. These kids are there. They get to meet the president of the United States. And then this happens. Does he just up and say, well, screw you kids, I got to go?
No, I mean, that's extreme. That's ludicrous. There is a way to exit the room. I mean, kids' feelings be damned, but the way to exit the room as your president, even lie. I mean, he was familiar with that. I mean, so he couldn't lie or say something to get out of the room without causing panic. Come on, of course he could. That's true. Of course he can get out the room.
That's true. I think a lot of it too, though, was Bush. Like me and Sean talk about when you watch the famous footage of him being walked up to by Andy Card and you see the gears start turning. I think a lot of them was, okay, what do I do now? How do I gracefully exit this position? How do I?
But don't you guys see? That's the main thing. That's the thing. There is proof that people were trying to warn him. So that it's not that he sat there and just stand being patient with wheels turning. It's the fact that he looked unprepared. And as the president of the United freaking States, we expect you to be prepared. And he was prepared because people did try to warn him. That's what they're on his butt about. They're not on his butt about because he looks slow. They're on his butt about, dude, why weren't you prepared?
Well, I mean, to be fair, when Oklahoma City was bombed, during Clinton's presidency, he wasn't in front of a classroom when that happened. We didn't hear from him till later on that day. We don't know how
because he didn't have warnings. President Bush was notorious for not listening to his cabinet. It's the way Trump is. Well, Trump is worse. But
Trump's worse.
Yeah, Bush admitted that he didn't like reading all the information about that. Very true. No, yeah. And the thing about it, the Oklahoma bombings, there wasn't FBI telling Clinton, hey, this could happen. It just happened. So the difference between that is one dude should have been prepared because he had the information, and the other dude didn't know what the hell hit him.
Well, and I question, and we'll get into that, like I said, here in just a moment, but I question how much knowledge actually got to the president based upon that show that I recommended to you guys to watch on Hulu, The Looming Tower. And it's actually also a book based upon Ali Soufan, I believe is his name's, life in the CIA. And, I question how much of that information actually got up to the president or how much of that got cut underneath him by whether it be Dick Cheney, Condoleezza Rice, or whoever. But getting into it, the next thing that Bush was criticized on that day about was him not going directly back to Washington and speaking from the Oval Office or speaking as the president. And I want to address that as well, because in watching this documentary Friday night, I did not understand, I didn't know this, but the Secret Service can actually override the president in these cases. The president, Bush, wanted to go back to Washington immediately. He said, I've got to be back in Washington. You don't understand. I will be criticized on this. They literally said they argued on the tarmac for 30 minutes about where they were going, and the Secret Service said, no, you're not going to Washington. We're getting you the hell out of here. I don't know where we're going, but we're not going to Washington. Right. So once again, that's another case where Bush couldn't do much about it.
Right.
And I truly do believe Bush was like, yo, motherfucker, I'm goddamn George W. Bush, because he's a Texan and Mr. Macho, you know, he does have that aura about him. That, he's a good old boy and et cetera, et cetera. And I guarantee you, I feel like he wanted to be in Washington and he wanted to address the country on a much bigger scale than what he did at Barksdale later on in the day, a lot sooner. I think he ended up actually giving the address that night from the Oval Office. They finally made it back to Washington that night. But, I mean, at a certain point, can you blame the Secret Service? And at a certain point, can you blame Bush when it was out of his hands?
I didn't know like the regulations as far as the Secret Service and what they do. But I can understand why they would argue such a point and get him out of there. I mean, that's their job, to protect him no matter what. I didn't know that they could supersede his decision, though, because I've heard of presidents actually saying, well, I'm just not going to do that, and not doing what they said. So I didn't know that was a possibility. This
was a case where, and they had the pilot that was piloting Air Force One that day. This was a case where he was like, okay, where are we going? And Bush said, we're going to Washington. And the Secret Service said, no, sir. According to this section, subsection, yada, 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 bullshit, 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 our job is to protect you. We're overruling you. You're not going to Washington. It's too dangerous. And that's what ended up happening that day. And, the final thing that I'll bring up from that day that we know for sure.
I wanted to
go ahead.
I wanted to let you get that out, and I wanted to intervene with something. Bush had to cave at a certain time, at a certain moment, because the president has the authority to fire the FBI. We learned that through Trump. Right. Mm-hmm. So there had to be a little give with Bush, because we know his bravado. You're right. He had that Texas. It's been able to Cheney's nightmare, because Bush is like, hey, I'm the president. I'm
the decider.
Exactly. So there had to be something on his side, because yes, they do have that. They can supersede that to an extent, because he still has the power to say, okay, you're fucking fired. So I guess if Trump has taught me anything, the president has a lot of more power in these situations than I thought. To where he could actually fire the head of the FBI. If he could fire the head of the FBI, I can't. It's hard for me to accept that Bush said, "Well, I guess I'm checkmated." So I think there had to be somebody.
Trust me, when it wasn't Bush sitting back saying, "Oh fuck, I guess I lost." Apparently, he was kicking and screaming the whole way.
Yeah. So to me that was dangerous. I think, be it Cheney or whoever. Condoleezza Rice, whoever, somebody had to, besides the FBI, if he was kicking and screaming, maybe they took advantage of his lack of knowledge in protocol and all that. Because all I know is, just from our current president, that if a president wants something, I mean, wow. So that rocks me.
I mean, that's true. That's a good point. That's a very good point that you bring up is, that's what I thought when I heard, them say, yeah, the Secret Service can overrule the president. I was like, the fuck? Really? But I
It's
mean,
gotta be
you
in
have heard
protocols.
stuff like you said about John F. Kennedy, for example, the day he was shot, going out into the fucking crowd, and the Secret Service was like, "No, Mr. President, don't fucking do that. This is goddamn Dallas." And he did it anyway. So yeah, I mean, there may be a case. I think that is more of a case though where you can't control the president's actions, whereas this is controlling a plane, that the president can't make a sudden fuck you, move. But, another thing that a lot of people talk about, and we'll talk about this more in depth when we talk about Flight 93, is the shoot down order. A lot of people don't know this, but President Bush, whether he's saving face or not, said on this documentary, it was made by the History Channel, by the way, if y'all want to go back and watch it, said on this documentary that Cheney gave the original shoot-down order, but Cheney immediately had to call the president, who was having communication problems, because, and they explained that as well, the pilot was like, fuck this, we're going to go up to 45,000 feet. Apparently the communications couldn't go up to 45,000 feet. It's well known that the communications weren't ready for this on board Air Force One, and that's something that Bush did work in the years, in the the next few years to stabilize. But apparently they had to get in. There was a big scramble. Like, can Cheney fucking give this order? So they finally got in touch with Bush, and Bush was like, yeah. If there's somebody that's not answering, shoot them down, And once again, I want you to kind of put yourself in that mindset. You just had to give an order to shoot down a potential commercial aircraft with American lives on board. Not only put yourself in the seat of the president in that case, put yourself in the cockpit of that jet that has to make that decision of, is this somebody that's going to do something? Do I need to fire upon this and destroy this target?
I mean, that's why they train you to take your orders.
Thank you.
If they're ethical orders, if that came from the president, that guy's going to shoot down that plane. There's a reason for it.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's just a little bit of dancing on the part of them doing that documentary. They're trying to dance around the whole subject and try to make it as light as possible. No, okay, there was a decision that needed to be made, and they were wishy-washy about it. That's a failure on the part of their leadership.
Well, and Andy Card said when he hung up the phone after Bush made that choice, when he hung up the phone, he looked at Andy Card and said, I can't believe as an ex-fighter pilot I just gave that order. Because, apparently it dawned on him, oh shit, I just told our military to fire against American civilians. And, I can see that though, Sean. Are you telling me that you wouldn't, as the President of the United States, you would be fully comfortable giving the order to shoot down a potential commercial aircraft that you have to make a split decision? Is this a bad decision? Is this a good plane or is this a bad plane?
Sometimes you have to make really bad decisions, okay, as a leader. And that sucks, especially when you're in the military. That's the price you pay for joining the military. And sometimes people under your command or civilians might die because of a decision that you made. And you have to live with that the rest of your life. Like when they dropped the bombs in Japan, the president had to live with that the rest of his life. He said he regretted it. He said it stopped the war. Now, that's up to debate whether that really stopped the war or not. We can go on to the conspiracy theories about that on another episode. But when it comes to American lives, New York City's been hit. 2 planes have been, hit the Twin Towers at this point. You need to make a decision. What about the other 2 planes that we know have been hijacked and are one circling around Washington, one's supposed to be heading towards San Francisco? What do we do?
So
the call should have been made. The call should have been made. Take them out.
I'm going to put both of you. You just answered my question, Duck. I'm going to put you in the hot seat there. If you, knowing what you know now and everything, if you were sitting in that seat as the President of the United States, would you have given the order to shoot down a commercial aircraft that was not responding but could potentially have American lives on board or, may just not be responding because of an equipment malfunction.
Yeah, I'm a little more cold. As we say, Vulcan, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. So, that's I would do it, and I would expect the president. That's what the job is for. But everybody's comparing the president to Joe Schmo, and I'm like, that's the job you took, dude. Yeah, you have to basically be responsible for killing Americans. At the potential could be more Americans dead. You're supposed to be trained. You don't take that job unless you know that there's a chance that that something like that can happen. So yes, I of course I feel horrible about it, but I would do it.
I think we're all three in, agreement on that. I think I would as well, but at the same time, it would weigh on me. And I definitely understand
it wouldn't weigh on you unless
afterwards.
you were a psychopath, Honestly, it's a hard decision. It's going to weigh on the president. It's going to weigh on the people that give the order. It's going to weigh on the pilot for the rest of their lives. That's something that they're always going to be haunted by. And that becomes public information after a while. Those names will be released. They'll know who actually did it. Like the crew of the Enola Gay. We know who those guys were and what they did. They had to live with that for the rest of their lives. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, if it came down to it, I don't know. I think a prerequisite for being the president is that you should have served in the full-time military, one of the now
active
6
duty.
branches. Yeah, one of the 6 branches that we have now.
Space Force.
Yeah, Space Force. But I think that to be president, you should serve in the military, active duty, for at least 10 years, at least, so that you get a very good taste of what military life is like, what the conditions are like, what the soldiers are like, what the enlisted men are like. Most people don't know. Most married families in the military, they're on WIC. And government assistance because they can't afford to fucking live. If a president really knew that about his soldiers, because he's the commander in chief, maybe he might bump up their pay a little bit. Maybe he might actually make it worth their while. Maybe it's not just about college money. Maybe it's about a standard of living for these guys that are willing to write the blank check to sacrifice their lives if the call comes. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. So
I mentioned the Enola Gay. I'm wondering if the people of the Enola Gay, the crew of the Enola Gay, knew that Japan had already surrendered. I wonder if they knew.
I don't think anybody knew at that point. They had not officially surrendered, but our government, if you look at the reports of what the president and the administration was looking at the time, they were about 13 days away from actually surrendering when the decision was made. Yeah.
No. Yeah. You gotta look. Okay, I gotta find. I should find the information first. But no, we had already had them beat. They had actually tried to surrender, and we turned them down.
Yeah,
and they wouldn't fully surrender without conditions.
It wasn't.
It was a show of power. Right. It was a show of power. We wanted to show them. Russia.
If they hadn't have dropped the bomb, the war would have been over in about 13 days, regardless.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't sustain it. They were to the point where they knew it was over.
Right. So we're going to go ahead and get into some of these conspiracy theories, and we kind of bumped on some of them, and especially this first topic going in. So the Bush administration had foreknowledge of the attacks. I think that in some way, in some aspect, it got to the president. Osama bin Laden is determined to attack. I think that it got to the president, but no details. I believe that. I believe that there was no, hey, there's planes, hey, there's guys, hey, I don't think that got to Bush's desk. I think all that Bush got was, hey, there's a potential for an attack from Osama bin Laden. We don't know any details. I think everything else that was important, and this is going to become a theme in this show for me, I think everything else, the more important details, may have hit Condi's desk, may have hit Dick's desk, may have hit, I knew you were going to laugh at that. But
I can't, but I'm a child. What can I say?
I think that's how it rolls with me, is that I don't think Bush got the full story. And I think Bush was grossly underprepared for this. I think this lies in the lap of Dick Cheney and Condoleezza Rice.
Well, is there anybody here in any kind of disagreement at all that Cheney was actually running the country while Bush was the president?
No.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they were like, "Go on, George, go play with everybody, go have fun there, buddy." And he was like, "Yeehaw!" And he went out there to do whatever he had to do. And Cheney was like, "Fuck that idiot! God damn,
you leave my W alone, damn it."
Right?
W has gotten better. W has gotten smarter in the previous few years.
Okay.
Yes, he has.
Just because Michelle Obama gives them pieces of candy and they're little buddies right now, it doesn't make him a good guy. Okay.
Hey, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about it does seem like in the years since he's left office that, he's grown.
He just seems more enlightened. Yeah, he seems more knowledgeable.
Like, could you imagine George W. Bush in 2005 supporting Black Lives Matter? I couldn't.
Well, no. I couldn't see that. No, so you're right about that. He's grown a bit as a person, but when he came out with that book just a couple years ago, and I was a president. I was famous and shit. That was cool. That kind of pissed me off. Seriously, I was just like,
every president writes that book, though. You shouldn't be mad at George just for that. I'm waiting for Obama's actually.
But that pissed me off because of all the lives that were lost because of the fucking wars. I mean, I'm sorry. Any president that has served during the time of these wars needs to be somber about those comments. They need to say, hey, it was a great honor to be a president. And I couldn't get us out of these wars. I failed on that part, and I'm sorry. So if I hear that, well, then I've got respect for you because, one of my biggest critiques against President Obama is that he didn't end the wars. He didn't shut down Gitmo. He didn't do a damn thing to stop the civilians being killed over in the Middle East. And he definitely didn't stop the apartheid.
But most of the people that he needed to help him do that made a pledge to counter anything he did.
Very true.
You're right. But he could have executive ordered anything. He is the chief
potential future fucking
Commander-in-Chief.
Supreme Court Justice.
That's true, but you can achieve that. But if you got every freaking body actually publicly saying that we're going to countermine everything you do.
Yeah.
It was amazing that he even got his healthcare thing going on. That was actually an act of God, because
no. That was some backdoor shit, and he didn't exactly get that through. He kind of went, "Hey, fuck y'all, I'm the goddamn president, and we're gonna do this shit." Here's the thing: I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but
when Obama was first elected, he did have the House and the Senate, and in those first 2 years, he played it safe for re-election, and he should have done that. He should have came out just hauling balls. We're changing this and this and this and this and this.
If he would have did that, he wouldn't have got reelected. Yeah, but he wouldn't have got reelected, and he wouldn't have been able to accomplish the things he did.
Well, you even say he was playing it safe, but we all agree he almost lost that reelection bid anyway.
Hello.
I mean, come on now. He came really close to losing to Romney. Until the 99% comment, I think Romney was in that race.
America is not ready for a Mormon president. That scares a lot of people.
We're kind of getting into American Idiots territory here.
Right?
Yeah, right. Thank you.
So, as far as the foreknowledge goes, and I'm going to use Wikipedia as a guide here. I know, but come on now. It's fucking conspiracy theories. Wikipedia is about as trustworthy as conspiracy theories. Anyway, so foreknowledge, it says conspiracy theorists claim that action or inaction by U.S. officials with foreknowledge was intended to ensure that the attacks took place successfully. For example, Michael Meacher, a former British environment minister, a member of Tony Blair's government, said that the United States knowingly failed to prevent the attacks. Do you guys buy that the U.S. knew and failed to act or failed to prevent these attacks, or knowingly allowed them to happen in some cases I've seen?
No.
Well, after before the documentary that I've seen with all the facts and evidence that it entailed, before that I would have said, well, they dropped the ball. So they sort of, I was basically thinking they dropped the ball. But after that, it doesn't even. I'm wondering if they weren't a part of it, because now there all this evidence from this documentary called Loose Change 911. Sean got me to actually look at they
which
got
I'm regretting right now.
And some people legitimately, though, do believe. Once again, I'll tell you this just straight up from Jump Street. I think Bush was too simple to have orchestrated something like 9/11. I won't say that Cheney wasn't. I won't say Cheney didn't, but I don't think Bush was. I think Bush was too simple.
You're kind of jumping the shark. You're doing the whole conspiracy thing. So first off, you got to think, how many people would have been involved in such a planned attack on America? How many? You're talking thousands of people would have had foreknowledge, capability, equipment, time, the schematics.
Which I don't doubt that it's possible.
The strategic planning. No, it's
why you say that?
It's impossible.
Why you say thousands?
No one has said a word about it. It would have taken
you got to think the CIA and the FBI. The CIA and the FBI, though, Duck.
No,
the CIA and the FBI, though, I legitimately think knew. I think they knew more because, and if you watch the Looming Tower, Sean, there was a major problem with the CIA not wanting to share information with the FBI and vice versa because they both had a problem, and it was all surrounding UBL.
I don't get why he thinks that. Did Oklahoma did that take thousands?
Oklahoma wasn't a federal thing. Well,
oh come on! But he blew up a
building.
Did it take thousands?
That was a state.
Okay, look.
It took one man.
Listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying. Okay, first off, you have to hijack 4 planes. Okay, what do you
have
do?
To strategically time
listen.
them.
Before you say anything, you'd have to hijack 4 planes. You got to get rid of. You got to get rid of all the people that are on all 4 of those planes. You're talking 300 people per each plane. What, you just going to kill them?
If you're trying to do something like this, yes. If I'm devious to do what they did, then yes.
Okay, so somehow you're going to hijack 4 planes. Your government's going to do that. You're just going to kill these 400 civilians. Okay, cool. We've established that. Now you have to bring down these towers using explosives because that's what the conspiracy theorists say actually happened. Okay. Now it takes crews. Okay,
no, it doesn't.
Of a 7-story building, it takes a crew of a minimum of 35 people to actually set all the charges in time to actually do that. Okay.
Timothy McVeigh would
Timothy McVeigh uses
take out a whole building.
Crude technology, and he didn't take out a whole building.
Yeah, he took out a big part of
the amount that he did take. It was only one man. So if it only took one man to do the damage he did, it's do more.
But it's unrealistic to believe that you could bring down 3 buildings like that because it is. You would need teams upon teams of people. You would have to have planning. You would have to have people strategizing how we're going to do it, when we're going to do it. A slew of information going back and forth between groups of people.
It doesn't take that many people to do that kind of planning.
We are, to be fair, we are going to get into the controlled demolition aspect of this. But next up is the suspected insider trading scheme. And we actually have a news story shortly after 9/11 that aired with some evidence on this.
Federal officials have begun a major investigation into whether someone or many people benefited financially from the evil done to the country last Tuesday. Not long before the attacks occurred, there were some financial transactions in the stock market that may indicate knowledge of the attack before it began. ABC's Antonio Mora is here. Whether they ever get to, if they ever get to the bottom of it, it will be astonishing.
Astonishing, no question, Peter. What many Wall Street analysts believe is that the terrorists made bets that a number of stocks would see their prices fall. They did so by buying what are called puts. If you bet right, the rewards can be huge. The risks are also huge, unless, of course, you know something bad is going to happen to the company you're betting against.
This could very well be insider trading at the worst, most horrific, most evil use you've ever seen in your entire life.
One example, United Airlines. The Thursday before the attack, more than 2,000 contracts betting that the stock would go down were purchased. 90 times more in one day than in 3 weeks. When the markets reopened, United's stock dropped. The price of the contracts soared, and someone may have made a lot of money fast.
$180,000 turns into $2.4 million when that plane hits the World Trade Center.
It's almost the same story with American Airlines.
That's a 5-fold increase in the value of what was a $337,000 trade on Monday.
All of a sudden becomes what?
$1.8 million.
And there's much more, including an extraordinarily high number of bets against Morgan Stanley and Marsh & McLennan, two of the World Trade Center's biggest tenants.
Could this be a coincidence? This would be one of the most extraordinary coincidences in the history of mankind if it was a coincidence.
It is absolutely unprecedented to see cases of insider trading covering the entire world, from Japan to the United States and North America to Europe.
ABC News has now learned that the Chicago Board of Options Exchange launched their investigation into the unusual trading last week. That may have given them enough time to stop anyone from profiting from death here in the U.S. It may also give investigators, Peter, a hot trail that might lead them to the terrorists.
Thanks very much. As a reminder of the complications here, though, the Secretary of the Treasury said today of this investigation, you've got to go through 10 veils before you get to the real source. Yep. Thanks, Antonio.
And of course, that came from 911 Time for Truth on YouTube. I mean, Sean, you're laughing about it. I kind of giggle about it. To say that, once again, a lot of these conspiracies, to say that somebody would publicly do these type of things and make sure these attacks happened or knew about these attacks and didn't stop them so that they could financially gain. It seems crazy, but the 9/11 Commission report concluded that exhaustive investigations by the Security and Exchange Commission, FBI, and other agencies have uncovered no evidence that anyone with advanced knowledge of the attacks profited through securities transactions. I don't buy this theory. I don't buy that anyone was like, oh, 9/11 is going to happen, but I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm just going to fucking make money off of it. Either of you guys buy this one?
No, I'm quiet on this one because I've never heard it, so it's hard for me to speak on. But my logical sense, it's hard to buy. It's kind of like it's too far-fetched.
Someone would have to be a complete bastard to do something like that. The next one,
Oh, they
Sean,
got that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's complete bastards.
Next, Sean, I've heard you bring up to me before, the air defense stand-down theory.
Right.
I've heard of this one, and I'm definitely interested. And we've got another story, this one from Total Reality on YouTube, who replayed a new story from this specific example.
The North American Aerospace Defense Command is charged with defending North America's airspace. On the morning of September 11th, 2001, Vice President Dick Cheney was in control of NORAD. This was the first time in U.S. history that a president or vice president was in direct control of the military agency. NORAD was founded in 1957, and generals always had the power to shoot down or intercept hijacked aircraft. But on June 1st, 2001, just 3 months before 9/11, Dick Cheney ordered Donald Rumsfeld to allow him to take control of NORAD itself and the shoot-down procedure, and remove that power from the generals so they could do nothing. Here is a copy of the memorandum from Rumsfeld to the Joint Chiefs, telling them they no longer have any authority. An Associated Press article in August of 2002 reported that the CIA just so happened to be running a drill on the morning of 9/11 of flying jets in the World Trade Center and Pentagon. Then senior FAA officials ordered air traffic controllers to shred the tapes from 9/11 in violation of federal law. AP learned of the drills because at a Homeland Security function after 9/11, they bragged about it. Oh, we had foresight. We were running drills that very morning. Then USA Today reported that drills held weeks before 9/11 included targets that were the Pentagon and World Trade Center. Biggest holes in their argument is the fact that they never heard of a plan to fly hijacked jets into landmarks on the East Coast.
We're going to take a closer look tonight at another example of where, despite the conventional wisdom, there were people in the United States who actually were preparing to defend against the kind of attacks which occurred here on 9/11. The North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD for short, has been defending the skies over the U.S. and Canada for almost 50 years, 46 to be precise. USA Today reports that in the 2 years before the attacks on September the 11th, NORAD conducted exercises using hijacked airliners as weapons. And one target was the World Trade Center.
We knew he hated us, but there was nobody in our government, at least, and I don't think the prior government, that could envision flying airplanes into buildings on such a massive scale.
But that turns out not to be true. U.S. military planners did envision and practice those very scenarios. As reported by USA Today, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, conducted exercises with fighter jets, simulating hijacked planes flown into the World Trade Center in the 2 years before the attacks.
And so then I saw Condoleezza Rice get up on TV and say, we had never thought, we had never heard. Why, that's a ridiculous conspiracy theory to say that.
Pentagon planners also envisioned the attack on the Pentagon 5 months before it happened.
The Pentagon had a drill in November of 2000 simulating a hijacked jet being flown to the Pentagon. So between all the drills before 9/11 and the drill in the morning of 9/11, air traffic controllers thought that it was a simulation.
Hijacked aircraft headed towards New York.
Is this real world or exercise?
No, this is not an exercise, manifest.
So, Sean, I mean, once again, this is another one that I'm going to have to say is BS. Common claim, of course, this is from the Wikipedia, issued a stand-down order or deliberately scrambled fighters late to allow hijacked airplanes to reach their targets without interference. Conspiracy theorist Mark Elisis says there is only one explanation for this. Our Air Force was ordered to stand down on 9/11. One of the... Go ahead.
For someone to make that claim without any documentation, that's just wrong.
Now, Sean, to be fair, it did look like there was documentation from Cheney ordering a stand down in that video, or ordering at least NORAD to stand down.
But where's the documentation? I haven't seen it.
Right. You know, and I mean, obviously, we couldn't read the documentation in that video. Only 14 jets, of course, on 9/11 were scrambled to protect 48 states. There was no automated method for the civilian air traffic controllers to alert NORAD. I'll tell you one thing, though, that makes me kind of scratch my chin is that clip they played of the air traffic controller talking to the gentleman and saying, you know, is this real world or is this exercise? That kind of does strike me as odd when you're telling me that you've never had an exercise and nobody could envision this type of thing happening. I will say that. Does that mean that, you know, we knew this was going to happen on this date, at this time, etc., etc.? Absolutely not. That doesn't prove anything to me. Duck, does that video or does the NORAD theory, does that, or the air defense stand-down theory, does that hold any water to you?
Well, like one thing struck me that Sean said, where's the documentation? I haven't seen the documentation. How would you? I don't know. Everything that's been, you got to take with a grain of salt, you know, but I've heard word that Cheney did try to, or maybe successfully did override NORAD. So I think it's likely, I guess.
There's several different stories now.
Okay.
Yeah, one says that they were doing.
I didn't get to say if I believe it. If I believe it, I believe that Dick Cheney was I think that Dick Cheney was possibly, what's the word I'm looking for? Dick Cheney would pull something like that. So I would believe that if Dick Cheney, if Dick Cheney would have the will to do something like that, I think it could have been done. But it's kind of hard to swallow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I buy that Dick could do that. I absolutely buy that Dick Cheney would do something like that. Because once again, Dick Cheney, his whole vice presidency to me seems like a power grab. He was constantly trying to undermine the president, in my opinion.
I'm sorry, but when you're so powerful that you can shoot a man in the face with a shotgun, and he turns around that day and
apologizes to you,
to the American people.
Yeah, that was mind blowing.
Obviously that dude's like the fucking Godfather right there. You don't fuck with that dude. Is he still alive?
Dick, yeah.
Maybe
or the guy he shot in the face.
Did he have? He had 3.
Yeah.
He has like.
How many baby hearts?
He's had like 3 or 4 new hearts. Yeah,
he keeps paying for new baby hearts. I mean, like, where's the cutoff with the boomers that we just quit giving them shit to live? Hey, it's time to go.
Damn it, Sean.
You're right.
Damn it, Sean. You just want boomers to die. Shame on you.
No. I want boomers to live a long, natural life. When we start spending billions of dollars doing preventive maintenance. You know what I'm saying?
Preventive maintenance. Is this like an aircraft?
It kind of is. After a while, you got to retire the bird and just let it go away.
Wow.
I mean, think about it. I was talking to my wife about this just yesterday, and it really made a lot of sense to me that where do we put all our money in society? We have Social Security, we have Medicaid and Medicare. We're talking millions upon millions of dollars that's going to the boomers, but we don't give shit to the next generation. We don't help them with education. We don't help them with healthcare. We don't help them with anything. We just leave them high and dry, but expect them to pay for these programs. Shouldn't we balance that out a bit?
That's true. So,
I mean, y'all are lucky I'm not the president, because man, shit would go weird. Real quick
before we move on. Does it hold water to you, Duck?
No, I guess it just doesn't hold water. It just there's not enough evidence behind it, enough for me to buy into it. I believe in Sean's shirt more than I believe in this
Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai.
Sean, does this NORAD air defense stand down theory hold water to you?
I mean, most of these conspiracy theories don't. Not at all. None of them.
I agree. And this next one I had once again never heard of before today, actually, when I started reading these. Israeli agents. So this one comes from it's basically been claimed that Israeli agents had foreknowledge of the attack, and one of the persistent theories claimed Israeli or Jewish involvement. 4 hours after the attack, the FBI actually arrested 5 Israelis who filmed the smoking skyline from the roof of a white van in the parking lot of an apartment building for puzzling behavior. The Israelis were videotaping the events, and one bystander said they were acted in a suspicious manner. She's quoted as saying they were happy, happy, you know? They didn't look shocked. I thought it was very strange. I've heard people attributing saying they were high-fiving.
How does she know they were Israeli? They could have been a bunch of black guys. Listening to Tupac. Happy about Tupac. They were looking out to Tupac, and she's like, oh, did you see those Israelis? You know?
Well, they wearing glasses like this.
Oh, see, there you go. There it is. Now, there had to be Israeli. But
I'll say this. Do I blame the FBI for investigating this? No, because number one, in this case, I believe you have to investigate any credible thing.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that. Come on now. Just because they were filming it, not acting like we all were, doesn't mean that they had any involvement. So in my case, this doesn't hold water. Sean, go ahead. How do you feel about these 5 Israelis high-fiving and filming the Capitol?
There's just too many paranoid white people for me to believe it.
Yeah. I mean, when I lived in Fremont, okay? Fremont has a high population of people from India. And there were all these people running around saying, yeah, man, I saw all these, ragheads, these towelheads, high-fiving and doing all this stuff. No, you didn't. they're Sheikies. They wouldn't do that. They're from fucking India, man. And the fact that you're that fucking stupid and have no idea what one culture is to another, you need to fucking kill yourself or go get an education. And it broke my heart to see stuff like that. It's like Donald Trump saying, oh, there were thousands of, Jews and Iraqis out in New Jersey that were high-fiving and doing all this. He didn't see shit. He was bragging about how his building's now the tallest building in New York. So, no, nobody saw that. Nobody saw anybody high-fiving. Nobody saw anybody celebrate. That didn't happen. The entire fucking world was just horrified at what was happening. And I'm sure the terrorists that were, that were involved or whatever, they were pretty horrified too. Like, holy shit, look what we can do. I'm sure there wasn't a lot of celebrating, when it happened. Celebrating, sorry.
All it took was a couple of Karens to see some brown-skinned people, and that was it.
Right,
that's all it took. That's all it took nowadays. Nothing's changed. It wasn't so different back then. Then you saw some brown folks, and they were like, woo.
I mean, my thing is this, though. Once again, I can't blame the FBI in this case. I don't think it was racism or anything like that they investigated what they saw as potentially a credible thing. If anything, I'll share this later on as we get towards the end. I'll share this story. But, my thing is this. They didn't explore actually enough things, in my opinion.
He's texting.
He really is too. The next one I have a feeling we're going to spend a while on.
So he's not bored.
So this one, Duck, is the loose change. This one is the loose change. It's conspiracy theory, and this is the one that's really prevalent. A controlled demolition. Basically, it was a controlled implosion. I don't know. We do have a video to go with this. So, and Duck, you just hit on this in the chat. There's one way to bring down that
to each other when we're watching these. That, by the way, people should know that.
True. There's we're mostly talking about the Tampa Bay and Buccaneers and the Saints, by the way, behind me. But that's where I start to break down and stop listening to people, because there's only one way to fucking bring down a building explosively. Not to mention, so are we getting into sci-fi technology now? Technology we don't know about?
Do you know that there are technologies that we don't have access to that the government does? Is that sci-fi?
Well, absolutely, we do. But to say that...
Well, no, if that's true, then wouldn't it be reasonable that the government might have a different type of way to explode something than the conventional way?
But with absolutely no evidence behind of a controlled explosion?
How in the world can we have the evidence of the technology that the government might have? That's why this is where it's sort of mute. It's sort of like a no-win. It's a Mexican standoff here, because due to the evidence that they found in the debris, the nickel and all the stuff that they found in the debris that suggested that there was some type of explosion, and the fact that the engine fuel or plane fuel cannot do the damage that it did to these towers and make them actually implode on themselves and come straight down in 10 seconds.
To be fair, you watched one documentary called Loose Change, okay? There are several other documentaries that are out there that actually back up the government's claim of what happened. And you should watch them all. Loose Change is interesting. That's why I wanted you to watch it.
Absolutely.
Because that's the biggest one that all the conspiracy theorists really got a hold of. And I mean, yeah, it's compelling. You're like, oh shit, wow, that looks like demolition and all this stuff. But you can go back and look at it again. There's another version of Loose Change where they actually go back and say, well, it wasn't this and it wasn't this, and we kind of misled people saying this, but we do believe this. And we believe that they change their theory as they go along in different versions of the film.
Right.
So
most documentaries do.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Well, and that's my thing with this. You know, you listen to the controlled explosion that they use there on that Nat Geo show, and I sit there and I listen to that. I didn't hear those same sounds of individual charges going off whenever you're listening to the World Trade Center. Whenever you're listening to them fall, you don't hear those individual charges going off. All you hear is woo. You say that the jet fuel doesn't do enough damage. Does a fucking giant ass plane do enough damage that just sliced through the support beams of that fucking building?
Yeah.
Yes. 10 stories up.
Yeah, that was more than 10 stories up.
Yeah,
that was like 100 stories up.
That's even more my point then. Yes,
yeah,
that's even more my point.
But you're talking about 80 floors.
But you're talking about now they have to cover that weight.
And it just starts a domino effect all the way down. And of course, it didn't go all the way to the bottom. There's still some standing, right, that they had to demolish. That kind of proves that it wasn't a demolition.
Well, actually, I think it does. As a matter of fact, the way that the building fell proves, because there had no other building in history, and there has been buildings to receive major damage like that, but no other building in history has been able to just fall straight in on itself.
Do we know that for a fact?
Yes,
I mean, I've heard the claim, but I've never seen documentation that actually says. I mean, how many buildings are there in the world? Millions, right?
When you say you receive documentation, do you look at all documentation? Because when you say that, that makes me sort of dubious. As in, do you know enough documentation to be able to use that as an argument?
That's what I'm saying. When you have millions of buildings throughout the entire planet, possibly a billion or more,
and very few that are of the size of the World Trade Center,
right? How many have actually just collapsed for no reason at all? None? How many have collapsed from just a fire? I don't know. Does China give out information like that? Do other countries give out information like that? I mean, I honestly don't know. That's why I'm saying I'm playing devil's advocate here by saying I would like to see, the claim's been made. It's never happened before. Well, let's find out if it never has or not. Because in the history of skyscrapers, something's happened. It might have happened before.
The documentary covered the history of major catastrophes to skyscrapers that never fell in on themselves unless they were demolished. So,
very true. I mean, obviously, Duck, we know this holds water for you. We'll come back to you to explain why it holds theory, but Sean, does the controlled demolition...
I guess it's short because my wife is a structural drafter.
Okay.
I'm also an artist that has to once in a while freelance and do buildings and all that stuff. So I'm a little bit familiar with it, not a professional. But my wife's a professional, been structural drafter for 17 years. And I have dabbled in and out of, doing art for structures and stuff, three-dimensional wise and whatever. So that's why I've started to buy into some of the stuff they were saying.
So it does hold water to you, Duck, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sean does
not
controlled
everything,
demolition.
not all of it.
Right.
No, controlled demolition doesn't hold any water for me, only because, again, this goes back to you would have to have than one person working on this,
and they went into that in the Nat Geo.
You would have to have at least two people working. Well, no, you need more than that because there's multiple buildings, and then you would need multiple floors, and then the planes, of course, and then all the communication between all of them. There's probably going to be some emails and some different things like that.
But where are you getting this information? Are you pulling that?
Nat Geo even just said that it would take a team. Nat Geo just even pulled that it would take a team to do it.
I served in the military, and I know what it takes to get a team to do something, okay, especially construction-wise, because I was an engineer in the Army, okay? So something of that vast scale, that type of attack would have to have been coordinated, okay, with multiple teams communicating back and forth via email. Yeah.
How big was the building that Timothy McVeigh almost demolished?
He didn't demolish it, though, all the way. That's the thing.
So,
he set off one bomb.
So if there were 3 Timothy McVeighs,
Mm-hmm.
How much would have done damage would have done
hold
then?
on, I'll
3.
tell you exactly how big it was. Open floor, demolished. It doesn't actually say. Half the building collapsed. It wasn't anywhere close to the size and scope of the World Trade Center.
This
if
way.
there was 3
Feasibly,
Timothy McVeighs, could you have done more damage?
No, I'm trying to explain that. No, I'm trying to explain this in a way that doesn't just sound like bullshit.
There you go, Donald.
You would have to actually get coordination between several people to pull this off, and it would take multiple people to do that. You couldn't
agree.
just send one guy into each building. That's impossible.
Right.
To
Plus, you have to
impossible?
use a torch to get through
You would have
to get
to put
access to
charges
this.
on every one of those floors without ever being seen. Okay, from the bottom of that building all the way to the top. How many floors were there? 120 in each building.
Something like that.
Something like that. So you got to put explosives around every floor, every beam, all the way up 2 buildings. And you say one guy per building could do that?
Wait. Why are you saying that? Why couldn't you do like a McVeigh thing? 6. This is 6 Timothy McVeigh. Okay, I'm not finished the question. If there's 6 Timothy McVeighs and they demolished the bottom of they totally demolished the first bottom 0, how the hell is all the other floors gonna require explosive? If you demolish floor 1.
But they tried that in 93.
Yeah,
that's what they tried to do in 93.
Exactly.
Remember the 93 World Trade Center bombings?
Okay.
A guy drove in just like McVeigh, drove in at the bottom floor, or actually in the parking.
I think
basement.
I get what you're saying. Like, why couldn't you have that amount of explosive on 3 separate floors to do that much damage? I think because it would have blown up in a particular way that you would have seen it.
So you would have seen that kind of explosion.
They're not saying it was the type of explosives that you're explaining, though. They're saying these were different type of explosives. Why? But they have witnesses
that these are explosives we've never seen.
But they're just saying that with no evidence. There is no evidence that they use any type of explosive that we don't know about.
Right.
But I thought they had evidence when they talked to the
evidence that they're looking at. The evidence they're looking at is based upon evidence of discharges we know about. I mean, you're talking about finding traces of nickel in the World Trade Center. We know about that.
So let's go reverse then. What evidence backs you guys up then? What concrete evidence? Except
I've already told you the size and scope. Just like Nat Geo said, you'd have to have access to the beams, which, I mean, yes, apparently you could with this elevator upgrade. You could have access, but you'd still need an acetylene torch, which requires more than one individual. You'd still need somebody carrying the explosives, and you'd have to completely be secretive about it in a floor in a building that...
I didn't say one person.
Right.
I didn't agree that it would take 60 or 30 people like Sean indicated. So I'm not saying one person could do it.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
It becomes convoluted to, number one, keep it a secret if you've got these fucking 80 fucking people walking around.
I didn't think it would take 80. So you jumping from one
I'm
person.
I'm not saying 80, but a team. The bigger the team, the more they're going to be noticeable.
Mike is only saying 80 because that's the number that I kind of came up with earlier. You said one person could do all of this, okay? I said Timothy McVeigh was one person, and I was pointing out that the damage that he did. So I disagree that it would be 80 people. I in no way believe ever that one person could do all that damage. I'm telling you that 80 people is there's no.
I'm telling you that.
But I'm trying to say that there.
Six to a dozen.
I'm trying to say that there is no Mission Impossible group out there that could have pulled off 9/11. That's impossible. There's too many variables. There's too many things that could have gone wrong. How they could have gotten caught. People not talking. Different things like that. This would have taken months to plan out. Months. Okay?
Well, maybe they had months. Maybe they did years. I don't get it. What does
where did they
say?
Where did they hide? Where did they put their
Where did
stuff?
they transmit information?
I mean, you have to cut into
why
the
haven't
beam.
we
where
found
did the people
information?
where did the people out here that took over the planes? There's people, and you got
We
you
have
got
evidence
you're
that they
basically
took over
going
the
off of
planes.
where did they
I mean,
hide? Just
they were sitting in
before
the seat.
9/11, it was easy to hide. They could everywhere. Where did they hide? Of course they could. To me, that's that.
But what we're
I'm not
saying
even
is
gonna
it's
go
not that
deep
it's
into
not
that.
that they're hiding themselves. It's that they're hiding the. We're saying they can't hide the information. They've got to be able to. They've got to be able to communicate. They've got to either have emails out there. They've got to have something out there where they're saying, okay, on September 10th, we're going to be doing floors 1 through 110 or whatever.
Okay,
you
so
know?
by your logic, then the plane shouldn't have been able to be hijacked because they should have been able to communicate that way.
We
So how
do
did
have
they do that?
communications. We do have communications from Al Qaeda.
Okay, then. So what? Wait a minute. So I don't get it. They can communicate to hijack planes, but they can't communicate to explode the
We're
building.
not saying they can't. We're saying there's no evidence of these communications that they would need to make to
Maybe
be
they
able
were
to coordinate
careful.
this.
But why is that? Why is that
That's why I'm
impossible to
saying
hide?
that's why I'm saying it's impossible. Somebody would have screwed up such a major operation. I was in the military for so long. There's not a single operation that I was ever involved in, whether it was just my platoon going up to the 82nd Airborne Royal Dragon, working with the 39th Airborne Corps, 26,000 paratroopers jumping in one night, that at least one thing didn't go wrong and somebody got fucked up. It happened every fucking time. So here we are. We're talking about this huge, major terrorist thing. You know, we have insiders doing it or
Again,
whatever.
you're saying huge.
Somebody would have fucked up.
Okay, again, you're saying you're blowing up the team. I keep telling you that we already disagree that the team wouldn't have to be as gigantic as you're saying it had to be. So you're basically going off a
No, I say it
So
still
there's the
has to be a
problem.
large. I still say it has to be a large number of people.
So exactly. So if we're stuck on that, you can't go over that and then say, well, based off of what I already said that you disagreed with, it couldn't happen. That makes no sense.
What we're saying is that we don't think that it could occur without a large group of people.
Right.
We don't think it could occur
what I'm
without
saying.
a team working on it.
I think it was a team. I just don't think it was an 80 or 60 man team. I don't think it was.
Right, and
That's
I think
my
that's
point.
where
Yeah,
I think
and-
that's our disparity is we
Yeah,
can't,
exactly.
you know,
So
and
since
that's
we're
the
stuck
problem.
at that, it's hard to move past that. Then
Right.
Right.
the premise that you already disagree on, it would be impossible. I'm like,
Right.
you can't use the word impossible until we fix the first premise. So
Right,
that's
right.
where I'm stuck.
And, you know, we obviously can't fix the first premise without knowing how many people were on the team, too. But next up is the Pentagon, and we actually have the AP footage from the surveillance on the Pentagon. You're going to have to look really close, constantly look at the right side, because me and Donald barely were able to see this. We did transmit a picture, but we'll talk about our thoughts on this video here in just a moment after we get done watching it. Okay, and I'm going to play it one more time real quick. Keep your eye on the right side of the screen because my perception just changed a little bit. Because I could clearly see the object this time. I wish we had a pause function, but, you know, in watching that this morning, me and Donald both agreed, you know, we couldn't tell what it was watching that because you literally had to. But watching it that time, looking completely at the right side of the screen the whole time, I saw it come in, and I can say it did look like it had a tail. So I can now say that I don't necessarily agree with what I said this morning. It did look more like a plane to me this time than it did a missile, as we agreed upon earlier, Duck. This time it looked a little bit different to me when I was focused just directly on that right side of the screen.
The hole in the Pentagon is questionable. The debris that you see is questionable, and I personally believe that if that size jet had hit the Pentagon the way that they say that it did, that maybe there would have been a lot more damage. But I don't know because I wasn't there and I didn't see it. And I don't know that something didn't happen to that plane before it reached that part. Maybe the wings broke off before it hit that part. I don't know. I can't explain anything to do with that. But the hole is suspect. I'll definitely admit that. I've seen pictures where they're like, this isn't even the engine of that type of plane that's sitting there on the ground. That's suspect. Is that true or not? I mean, it's a claim that's been made, but how do we verify that without being an actual aeronautical engineer and going there and seeing it? It's like the JFK assassination. There are so many things that you can look at and be like, I want to believe this, but I can't because I don't know.
Well, and I will share my screen and bring up the picture. It's a rather small picture, but I will share my screen and bring up the picture that we were showing, and this is a very famous photo of what looks like they may have taken literally frame by frame, and that, no question, I think we can all three agree that looks like a jumbo jet.
Oh, it's too tiny.
Yeah, it's too tiny, unfortunately, but
that's what she said.
That definitely looks like a jumbo jet. I think we can all three agree on that right there. But people believe that it was a missile strike against the Pentagon and not a jumbo jet. This theory I'm kind of inconclusive on because until we just started talking about it here, I thought it could have possibly been a missile strike, and then watching the video back, I wasn't sure. So, Sean, Donald, I'll let you guys talk about that for a second. I'm inconclusive on whether this holds water for me.
Okay. Well, I'm stuck in the same position Mike is. It's just too damn fast. I've looked at all the pictures of the lack of debris. Gives me great pause. I mean, something that big, fuselages are, the tons, and they, the lack of debris is what paused me, and I wasn't exactly where I was, because when he showed the video again, I knew where to look, and it did look like I'm like, did I just see a tail? So when I first saw it, it was just a cylinder white streak that looked like could have been a missile. But but watching it when Mike just played, like, oh man, I look like an idiot because it really did seem like it was a big plane.
I mean, and it could have been.
Where the hell did it all go?
Right, exactly, and that's why I say I've got to be inconclusive on this.
But you know what? Here's another thing too. You're going to tell me that's the only visual angle of that building strike that was in that area at that time. I mean, that's bullshit.
No. Did you see the documentary? Your Loose Change had a bunch of they blown up a bunch of other pictures.
Yeah, there were a few other pictures, but I'm talking about the actual impact itself.
Oh,
at that moment. And they say that the FBI and, National Security Agency and different people went around all of the surrounding area and gathered up all of the surveillance equipment and tapes or whatever that they could find so that they basically no one will ever know what hit the goddamn Pentagon 100%. I mean, you either take the government story or you don't, that's what you're stuck with. And it's kind of like Flight 93 that hit the ground in Pennsylvania. When I first saw that, I thought it was odd because how little debris that there was. And I've seen a lot of airplane crashes over the years in different countries, different terrains, in the mountains, and there's always a lot of debris. But Flight 93 did not have a lot of debris. And that's one thing that probably will always bother me about it and makes me go, I don't know.
Well, and that's the next theory we'll get into is Flight 93, and we actually have a video to go along with this one as well.
United 93 is with you at 350. Intermittent light stop. United 93 checking in 350. United 93 350. United 93, that traffic to you is 1 o'clock 12 miles eastbound 370. Negative contact, we're looking at United 93.
Somebody call Cleveland. United 93, verify 350. United 93, verify your flight level 350. United 93, verify your level of 350. United 93, Cleveland. United 93, Cleveland. United 93, here, Cleveland Center, again, please. United 1523, did you hear your company, did you hear some interference on the frequency here a couple minutes ago, screaming?
Yes, I did, 797, and we couldn't tell what it was either.
Okay. United 93, Cleveland, if you hear the center, again.
For American 1060, a ditto on the other transmission.
American 1060, you heard that also?
Yes, sir, twice.
Roger, we heard that also, thanks. I just wanted to confirm there wasn't some interference.
Is that your 956?
Is that your 956, Bill?
No, we're just answering your call. We did hear that yelling, too.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're just trying to figure out what's going on. Calling Cleveland Center, you're unreadable. Say again slowly.
Sir, did you hear the transmission where the airplane just said he had a bomb on board?
Say again, was that United 93?
Yeah, that transmission he said was unreasonable. It sounded like someone said they have a bomb on board.
That's what we thought. We didn't get it clear. Is that United 93 calling? Sector 956, that aircraft we believe was transmitting is 12 o'clock, flying 5 miles, turn left heading 225. I'll get you away from him. Okay, he's climbing, so I want to keep everybody away from him.
Okay, I think we got him in sight.
Well, the 1989, that traffic views at 11 o'clock and 15 miles southbound. 41 timing, looks like he's turning east by heading 360.
Here's the captain. I would like to remain seated. There's one aboard, and going to back to the airport, and our demand to remain quiet.
Okay, it's United 93 calling. United 93, understand for the bomb on board, go ahead. United 956, did you understand that transmission?
Okay, affirmative, he said there was a bomb on board.
And that was all you got out of it also?
Okay, affirmative.
93, go ahead.
That aircraft you taking a hold of, is he turned to the east now?
He's just turned to the east also. United 93, you hear Cleveland Center. Okay, American 1060 and Executive 956, we just lost the target on that aircraft.
Okay, 956, we had a visual on him, just stand by.
Do you have a visual on him now?
We did, but we lost him at the turn.
You can make a turn back to 220 heading, let me know if you can see him.
Yeah, he's still there, we got him for 956.
He's still there, northwest of you, about 25 miles?
Affirmative for 956.
Executive 956, fighting 180.
Okay, we're making a turn for 956, he appears to be heading right towards us.
American 1060, do you see anybody northwest of you? Can you shoot back that far there?
We're looking now, sir.
United 93, Cleveland, do you still hear the center? United 93, do you still hear Cleveland? United 93, United 903, do you hear Cleveland? United 93, United 93, Cleveland. United 93, United 93, do you hear Cleveland Center?
Do you see any activity on your right side, smoke or anything like that?
Negative, we're sir. Yeah, we do have a smoke puffed out about, probably 2 o'clock. It appears to be just a dark cloud, like a puff of black smoke.
And that one coming from Free World 1776. Flight 93, another interesting one. You know, he brings up a good point. No plane, no luggage, nothing. I really have no argument in this one. I'm not sure. I'm inconclusive on this one.
I want to speak on this, but I'm just... this one's a little out of my depth. What do you think?
Go ahead.
I don't know if it's my mic.
No, I can hear you. I apologize. I had to step away for a second and deal with my dog. But no, I mean, my deal is this though. There's obvious ATC communications. We've established that. There's obvious what happened to Flight 93 if it didn't crash? Is my question. There's thoughts that, even that day, they talked about there were thoughts that that plane could have been brought down by a missile strike. I'm not sure. I know there are phone calls recorded saying that that there are phone calls saying that there were, supposedly from the people on Flight 93. There are, there's circumstantial evidence, but there's no physical evidence. So
yeah, some of those
I'm
phone calls are
inconclusive
weird
on
too.
this.
Yeah, because like one guy calls and he's like, "Hey, Mom, it's Doug Stewartson, your son." Who talks to their mom like that?
Right.
I mean, it just seemed kind of
That's a
weird.
good
Like, why
point.
wouldn't you pick up the phone and be like, "Yo, Mom, like I'm on this plane and blah blah blah"? Is she gonna be like, "Who's
With some
this?"
of the calls,
She's
though,
gonna
to be
obviously
fair,
assume it's one of her kids if she has multiple.
to be fair, some of the calls do go like, "Hey, this is what's going down. This is what we're thinking. We're gonna beat these motherfuckers' asses if once they found out that there was hijackers." There are situations that did occur on that flight where there were recordings of more natural phone calls, but I don't necessarily buy without, looking at the U.S. Geological Survey from 1994. I don't just automatically buy in that dark scar was on the Earth at that point. I'd have to look at it and see it with all of my
Yeah, I mean, when a plane comes down to the ground and actually hits the ground at the speed that those planes hit the Twin Towers, I don't know what that looks like. I've never seen a picture of that. I've seen planes that were at cruising altitude that lost altitude and fuel after a while and crashed in the mountains and different things like that. But I've never seen. Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert in all this kind of stuff, so it just seems odd that there wasn't a lot of debris. If you ever do, and I did this after I had seen Loose Change, just Google airplane crash pictures, and you'll just see hundreds and hundreds of pictures, and then you go to Flight 93, and you're like, that's weird. Compared to everything else I've seen, this one is really weird.
Right. It absolutely is.
Maybe they were covering up the fact that they shot it down.
Well, maybe that's it. Because when there's this many odd things that never occurred the same way, from the buildings to the way it fell to the Pentagon getting hit. When there's so many of these things like never have you seen something in this particular way, there's no wonder there's so many conspiracy theories.
Right, absolutely. So once again, in my case on this one, I'm inconclusive again, just like the Pentagon. Duck, are you inconclusive? Do you believe it?
Very. There's things that make me pause, but this one I can't. I guess I'm leaning towards bullshit because I can't find. I actually did what Sean did. I really did look at a lot of airplane wrecks, and these things are massive. The people are forgetting how massive this plane is, and to have this less debris is just. So yeah, just because of the debris thing, I'm leaning towards bullshit.
Right.
And of course, that was pretty much it as far as our conspiracy theories that I had listed. Dina says impact was too fast and hard. It can't happen. There was a flight that crashed in Florida. Same happened. Forgot the flight. So I mean, there may, and I'd love to see evidence that this is possible.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, I want to see that because I mean, it's weird. I mean, it looks like somebody, and I hate to say it this way because I worked with heavy equipment for so long. Well, look, somebody took a dozer out there and kind of dug around the ground and then poured a bunch of fuel in it and set that on fire.
Do I buy that? Do I buy necessarily that it was a bomb? No. The bomb craters that he showed, I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bomb.
I don't think it's a bomb. I think it may be.
I could do that with a D5 to D10 dozer really easy.
Right. I personally, if anything, I would say that I'm inconclusive because I'm still not sure that they didn't shoot the damn plane down. Which, if they did, then at
maybe
that
it's a
point
cover-up
we've all agreed that
maybe
Bush
Bush did order a plane down, and that's what happened. And then they were like, "Oops," and they're covering that shit up.
Yeah. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've all three agreed. Why the fuck do you have to
I
come
think
up
that
with
could
this
be realistic.
glorious story about, these people, which, of course, I guess it did. Woo, America, yeah, these motherfuckers are heroes. Motherfucker,
You know what?
yeah.
Mike just covered it. You guys know what Occam's razor is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is, well, for anybody who's watching that don't know what Occam's razor is, it's saying that the most likely of a story is most likely the truth. Like if someone says, I got abducted by aliens, this is why I'm late, and then another person says, well, I had a beer, and this is why I'm late. Most 9 times out of 10, it's the guy that had the beer story is what's going to be true. This is what cops use to differentiate truth through two different conflicting stories. And now I'm starting to back up with Occam's razor here, and as far as the Bush, but the thing is, Occam's razor applies to the debris. It's like, at every freaking picture, if you can't find one picture out of all these pictures I Googled where there's this less debris, then Occam's razor says that something's fishy.
And I think that's what a lot of people are using for these conspiracy theories. Like, no other building's ever fallen like this. No other freestanding building like World Trade Center 7 has ever free fallen after not being hit by a plane. All these different things. And they're using that same argument that Donald just brought up. And it's a valid argument to bring things up with. We should question all these things because we don't have absolute truth. And that's something that drives me crazy. Is I want to know empirical facts, and I haven't been given any, and that's what really does upset me. They say that they took a lot of the debris straight out of the hole and straight to landfills to destroy it immediately to get rid of a bunch of evidence. Well, I mean, why didn't somebody stop them? Why didn't somebody take pictures and question? I don't get that. I mean, the people that make these claims, somebody should have been like, hey, hold on a second. We want to find out what's going on here. Why didn't somebody step in?
Why didn't the FBI, CIA, somebody
because
step in and be like, this is a crime scene?
Whistleblowers in our generation, whistleblowers in our generation get murdered. I would not want to be a whistleblower anymore. You couldn't have the same thing with Watergate happen again. Because we absolutely obliterate whistleblowers, every single one. Just look at what they did to cops that told on the bad cops. I mean, for every single, they get fired, and it's dozens. It's not just a few. Like, in this particular case, the good cop had some bones in his closet. No, it's dozens. And then you go back and then you go into the real whistleblowers, that expose the government tracking us. That expose. Look what happened to them. That's the answer to John's question.
Okay, y'all. So we're kind of wrapping things up here a little bit. That was the last conspiracy theory I had any information on.
Let's talk about Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai, yes. Have you seen it yet, Michael?
I have not.
Oh my God! Really?
Have you seen all of it, Donald?
Oh, I seen it when it was on YouTube.
Okay, so you've already seen both seasons.
Everything. Okay. Yeah, and I loved it. It's well written, and it pertains to my theory that Danielson was the dick all along. I've been saying no. Danielson was the one. Look, LaRusso went back to the beach. When he was arguing with Shoe and what's Rattling Shoe? I forgot her name. But anyway, and Daniel stepped in, and looking back, who threw the first punch? It was Daniel. He punched him in the face.
To be fair, Johnny did push him down, and then he punched.
After he got in his face,
right?
Because he got in his face first before he pushed. He had to be there in his face for him to push him down. He didn't have anything to do. He was trying to impress Madeline Stowe. He's the girl. He didn't know.
Elizabeth Shue, yes.
Elizabeth, there it is. Elizabeth.
So if you're not familiar with the story is this is 37 years after the first Karate Kid Okay, so it's after 37 years after 1984. So it's 2020, and Daniel LaRusso is a successful car dealer, and he owns several car dealerships and everything like that. Johnny, unfortunately, Johnny Lawrence, is not as successful, and he's a handyman. And this is his story, and that's why I love it, because it's about him. It's about how this affected his life. It's about him rebuilding his life, and they're already making some mistakes in the second season, and now they're talking about bringing back Elizabeth Shue in season 3, and I think that is a huge mistake. I don't want them to do that because it's going to take more away from Johnny's story. Right now, it's almost like watching Star Wars, because you've got you've got Johnny's main story, then you have Johnny and Daniel's main story, then their kid's main story, and then you've got all these other main stories with another character I don't want to mention, but you have like all these slivers of all these different stories. And no, just go back to Johnny, because I have the most fun. I have the most fun watching the story about Johnny, dealing with his students and everything like that.
Well, I'm going to be someone first, because you've been such a good girl. But I got 3 minutes.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Oh my!
Absolutely.
She was asking for peanuts, and I'm like, peanuts. Peanuts.
It sounds like a pretty good show. So what I'll do is I'll watch as much as I can this week, and I'll try to hop in this conversation next week, and we can have a full on discussion.
Great show. I agree with Sean, by the way. Yeah, I think it's a mistake bringing her back in. It takes away from what they've already done. And but my thing is, and Daniel's being himself, even at the beginning, kicking the guy in the face. I'm like, what kind of, like, dude. I mean, in front of him. Even though when he gets all hot, well, okay, this is the spoiler alert. Well, I better go there, but Daniel initiates a fight. Of course, it's going to be a fight between them. And Daniel, again, he initiates another fist fight at the guy's apartment, and it's like, kind of like, I mean, and he tries to show the guy off at a show, and tries to run Cobra Kai out of business. He's always attacking first, and that was not Miyagi's whole thing, So that's why I like the show, because it's still being true to the original movie, but I do fear that it's going to be like Star Wars, and it's going to start to get diluted, and the story is going to start.
They've even hinted that they might bring back one of the villains from Karate Kid 2, and it's like, no, you don't need to do that. You don't need to bring anybody else. The guy that he fought at the end of Karate Kid 2, that guy.
The Asian guy, the
that's what he looked like. That's what he looks like. But anyway, I don't need to see that. I just want to see, and I don't know, maybe it's me. I see Hollywood making the same mistake over and over again. Once they have a hit, they start throwing everything at you. Whether it's The Walking Dead, whether it's American Horror Story, whether it's Cobra Kai.
They're killing themselves to appease the fan, the hard fans, to be like, oh, remember that? Oh my God!
Yeah,
so they try to bring everything from.
But they don't need to do that.
The story, it's true. They shouldn't.
Yeah, they don't need to do that. I mean, one of the most unforgettable movies that horror movies that came out in the last 10 years, The Witch. Great story, was fucking terrifying, and it had nothing to do with modern times. And it was like, this is what a Quaker family would have faced back in the day. This was their reality, and how it all, it's like a complete mind fuck. By the end of the movie, you're like, what the fuck? It's a great horror movie,
Yeah, but they do that all the time with Dracula. I loved the new Dracula. I think it's on Netflix. It was awesome. Yeah. And then they brought him into the future, and I'm like,
and they ruined it. They ruined it.
Kind of like Freddy whenever they brought him out of the dreams.
Yeah, and it just
ruined it.
Right.
It just murdered it.
Well, I think Michael's ready to go.
All right,
okay. I gotta holler. I gotta run. Okay. So let's go ahead and do some wrap ups here. Final thoughts. Final thoughts heading in. Obviously, go Rams tonight. Fuck the Cowboys.
New Orleans is kicking ass right now, so Tom Brady isn't the shit. I'm very happy to report that.
Yeah, of course you are. You're a fucking. You're
Why
a
does
fucking.
everybody hate on Brady? Why is everybody hating Brady?
Montana fan.
Because he's
successful. Because he's successful.
No,
I'm a fucking Tom Brady hater, and that's why I dislike Tom Brady. But real quick,
so how do you feel about him, Sean?
I don't like the guy.
Tell us your real feelings. But no, real quick before we hop off of here, final thoughts on these conspiracy theories of 9/11.
Well, I think I wrap it all up with I think there's a lot to investigate still. I feel that the government doing what they usually do. Like, there's nothing to be seen. Ignore the man behind the big curtain. I think there's more to be out with. There's smoke, there's fire. That's all I'm saying.
It definitely teaches you to. Jennifer Mullins says, "Great movie, The Witch," but it definitely teaches you. You should always be questioning everything you see, Sean.
It's almost 20 years since 9/11 happened. We still don't have, clear answers. So I really do understand how people of the 60s believed, the same shit about the Kennedy assassination in the 80s. Like, we still don't have any clear answers about what actually happened. And there's going to be movies made, that we don't have a lot of non-documentary movies made about this, bringing in the conspiracy theories. And that's what I've been waiting for. When's Hollywood going to jump on board and you're going to see what somebody thinks it was a conspiracy theory where, Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible come in and do it all. That would be interesting, but it hasn't happened yet. So I don't know. Maybe in my lifetime we might find out. But
You're
I
saying
doubt
it
it.
hasn't happened because they haven't failed. If they're good, if they are Tom Cruise, then you're doing your job. You shouldn't know. You shouldn't be like, I've never heard of it. Yes, because they're good.
Was this like a swordfish? Was John Travolta involved?
Okay. I had to go there with my boy John and Swordfish.
Right.
Hey, I love Travolta too. Especially Pulp Fiction Travolta. Pulp Fiction Travolta is the best Travolta.
Yeah, he is. Damn.
But
Shot
guys,
Martin in the face.
But guys, we will see you next week, same time, 3:00 for the Shenanigans podcast, and we'll be bringing you some good topics.
Yeah, it definitely won't be so not lighthearted next week. We'll have a lot more fun.
Absolutely.
Yes,
we may
fun.
even come up with some top 10 lists. We're talking constantly about some things we want to bring in, but we will see you next week.
Michael Carnahan, please begin.